7:30, we received a suspicious vehicle person call, and we received that call on North Socrum Loop Road, which is north of the city of Lakeland and in the unincorporated area. We had a deputy respond where we talked to the lady who said that she noticed this suspicious vehicle parked beside Socrum Loop Road, and there was a strange person in it who said, "God sent me here to speak with one of your daughters." So upon our arrival, which was only 6 minutes, the vehicle was not here. The suspect was not here. We spent the next 20 plus minutes scouring the area. Of course, it's Saturday night, it's a busy evening, and we did not find the vehicle at all. So now let me fast forward to about 9 hours later. It's about 9:30 in the morning, 9 hours later, it's about 4:30 in the morning. One of our lieutenants is about 2 miles away at the intersection of Highway 98 North and Duff Road on another call, and hears 2 volleys of automatic gunfire in this direction. So he's actually west of the scene, about 2 miles away. Well, as you can well expect, early in the morning when it's very quiet, sound travels. He immediately notified his deputies to respond to the area, and within the same few seconds we began getting 911 calls of an active shooter. We have an active shooter protocol. When we drop an active shooter protocol, everyone responds. The nearest municipality was the city of Lakeland, the Lakeland Police Department, who are our colleagues and our friends and our partners. They immediately sent all of their resources as well as all of the resources that we had in the surrounding districts. Here's what we found when we arrived. As we tactically approached the area, there was a truck on fire and there was a popping noise in the front yard. Our deputies also noticed these breakable lights that were lining the path from the road up to the house. And at that moment in time, as we approached, we saw an individual totally outfitted in body armor and looked as if he was ready to engage us all in an active shooter situation, but we didn't see a firearm. Now understand, we're way out in the country area, so it's not unusual to see people in camo. But he was garbed up, and it appeared that he had bulletproof vests on, and he immediately ran back into this house. We didn't know who he was. We didn't see a gun. At that moment in time, we heard another volley and a woman scream and a baby whimper. Our lieutenant tried to make entry into the front of the house, and it was barricaded. He ran around to the back of the house. They made entry and met the person, and a gunfight ensued. The suspect shot at our lieutenant. Our lieutenant returned fire and backed out of the house. Responding units then directed gunfire to get 3 deputies out of the way that were pinned down by gunfire back through the front of the residence. At that moment in time, everything went silent. Air support was up. Our helicopter saw a suspect coming out with his hands raised, and we took him into custody. He was shot 1 time. We handcuffed him. Lakeland Police threw him into their car, raced him from the scene here to the staging area for EMS and fire. He was then rushed to Lakeland Regional. At Lakeland Regional, while being treated, he jumped up and tried to grab the Lakeland police officer's gun, and they had to fight with him again in the emergency room. Once again, we got him tied down, They gave him medication to render him unable to fight any longer, and they continued to treat him. During this period of time, we're telling the people to come out, and what we find as we enter, upon hearing sounds, we find an 11-year-old child shot multiple times. She was alive. We immediately transported her to the fire and EMS zone, and she was airlifted to Tampa General, where, as I understand, she is in surgery at this time. We feared that there was going to be booby traps there because of what we saw. We looked into what we now believe to be the suspect's truck, and we'll be able to give you more details on that later on, but he had everything down to blood stop kits, first aid kits, and he was ready for battle. Now he's in custody. We've gotten the 11-year-old. She looks our deputies in the eye and said, "There's 3 more dead people in the house." We made entry first with our robots to make sure there were no explosive devices. And in the house, in the main house, we discovered a man, a woman, and an infant in the mother's arms, all shot to death. We went to the house directly behind and found another lady shot to death. This man killed 4 people this morning, tried to kill our deputies, and then gave up. When he came out of the house, the first time we didn't see a gun, he shot at us from inside the house. When he exited the house the second time, he had his hands in the air and he gave up. He made statements that whenever he came out to the officers that transported him to the ambulance, "You know why I did this?" That was his statement. He said there's 3 in the house. He was driving a vehicle with a Marine Corps Florida license plate, but he described himself as a survivalist. And then he said, "I'm taking meth." Now, for those of you maybe around the country that aren't familiar with it, we've got a few legislators, fortunately just a very few, that think drugs are a low-level, nonviolent crime. And I know there's people from around the country, especially the West Coast, that think drugs are low-level, nonviolent drugs, and they're really not harmful. Well, this guy admitted to us he was taking those drugs before he went on this active shooter rampage, killing what we know to be 4 people right now. We are still looking for a 5th child about 10 or 11 years of age. We don't see any evidence at this point in our early investigation that the child's here, and our hopes and prayers are that the child was spending the night with a friend or a relative someplace else. The information I give you is absolutely preliminary and it's subject to change as the investigation begins, but I can tell you there were at least dozens, if not hundreds, of rounds fired this morning between our suspect and our deputies who were directing fire back at him to try to stop him from shooting at us. It was a tough situation, and it entailed at least 2 shootouts in close order with a suspect. As I'm told, he will be treated and released from the hospital, and obviously he'll be booked into the jail. Our detectives and crime scene are working on the charges, as you can well expect what they are. Our thanks go out to our State Attorney Brian Haas, who's going to speak next, and certainly the Lakeland Police Department, our colleagues and friends, because this is what we do. We have a county-wide protocol. We have a county-wide protocol where when there's an active shooter, whether you're with the police department, the state, we had Florida Highway Patrol here, we all go to the scene. We trained this and we executed it. But who in the world would ever expect to have an active shooter in a neighborhood at 4:30 on a Sunday morning? And I'm just told that the other child has been located alive, well, and someplace else. So that's the great news for all of us.
Is the other child supposed to be at the house?
I have no idea. Mr. Haas?
Yeah. Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning, everyone. This is a horrific incident. Our community and many families are hurting this morning. We are committed to working closely with law enforcement to getting to the bottom of this. I know there are a lot of questions, more questions than answers at this point. But the bottom line is we're all going to work together. We're going to provide support to the families of these victims. And we want answers, certainly, but we're going to get justice for the victims and for our community. So we appreciate all of the questions and interest. There are a lot of things we just don't know at this point, but we'll be in this to the end. Thank you.
We also have Sam Taylor, who's Assistant Chief of Police in Lakeland. He and Assistant Chief Pacheco are here. I want to tell you before anybody starts asking questions why the Chief of Police is not here. He's home quarantining with COVID, okay? We didn't want him here. He was ready to get out of bed and show up. We said, no, we're good. These guys are the best and they got it. So, Chief?
Thank you, Sheriff. Morning, Sam Taylor. Thank you guys for coming out. As the Sheriff and Brian said, this is a very active situation. What we're telling you now may change in an hour or a couple hours. The basics you have, and we're confident in the information that the Sheriff just gave you. Obviously, as he said, he'll update you a little bit later on as the day goes on. But this was a very active situation. As you can imagine, as the Sheriff indicated, there was an ongoing gun battle when the officers arrived. We had some of our officers that helped the Sheriff, deputies that were here, and also got involved with the gentleman again at the ER, where he tried to grab one of the officers' guns as well. So, but we do have him in custody, and as I said, we'll update you guys as more information becomes available. But thank you for coming out. Sure.
We'll be more than happy to entertain any of your questions, but quite frankly, we've told you everything that we know at this early point in the investigation. As you know, there's not many agencies that provide this level of transparency within just a few hours of the event. We take our chances telling you that anything we've told you is subject to change, but if you want to try a few questions, I'll either answer them or I won't.
Has the suspect been identified?
Yes, he has been identified, and I won't answer that at this time. We'll release it later on, okay? Probably at the next press conference.
And he's not connected to any of these people?
That's a good question. At this early point of the investigation, we don't know how he ended up there or why he ended up there, but he showed up twice within 9 hours. So we just don't know.
And was that the same house where he said he was looking for some door?
It was the same exact house that he showed up at 9 hours earlier.
Are you able to share if he had a criminal background?
I will be ready to share his criminal background with you at the next briefing. I can tell you that as far as we can tell at this moment in time, he's not from this county or this city area. That's subject to change too. That's part of the issue here. We're still trying to run to ground who this guy really is, and we will certainly release the information, and I'll probably meet with you depending on how quickly we are able to run that information to ground. As soon as I do, you'll know about it.
When he came out with his hands up, did any gunfire transpire between after he put his hands up?
No, absolutely not. He came out with his hands up, and that's why there was no further gunfire. It would have been nice if he'd come out with a gun, and then we'd have been able to read a newspaper through him, and we'd have had a different conversation here this morning. But when someone chooses to give up, we take them into custody peacefully. If he'd given us the opportunity, we'd have shot him up a lot. But he didn't, because he was a coward. You see, it's easy to shoot innocent children and babies and people in the middle of the night when you got the gun and they don't. But he was not much of a man.
And all of those people were in that one. It was just one house that was closed.
Two houses.
Two houses.
Do you
Is the
suspect
11-year-old the only one that survived during the time?
The 11-year-old is alive and I understand doing well. She was conversing with our detectives at Tampa General. And I can add that Tampa General is simply the best trauma center any place in the nation. We've got a great one in Lakeland, but because she was a juvenile, she was taken to Tampa, which is only about 35 miles from here. But she's in the best care she can possibly get at Tampa General.
Sheriff, you said that when that lady made the call, he said to her that he wanted to speak to one of her daughters. Was she one of the victims?
We don't know who her daughters is. We still don't know that. It's just too early in the conversation. But he immediately left. And for 9 hours was gone. And at the end of the day, this is going to be more information that we can roll out to you. I don't know that we'll have those details in our next briefing or not, but we'll keep you up to date.
Can you give us some context for this area? So close to schools, residential, is this a safe place?
Oh, this is God's country up in here. Our crime rate in this county is at a 49-year low. Crime's never been this low. You've never been as safe as you are right now. But when you get a nut job like this, statistical data makes no difference. I mean, this guy was wired up on dope, on meth. You know what those people think is low-level nonviolent meth? Here's your sign today, again, and he came here for a gun battle. We don't know why. We're going to find out, and when we do, we'll tell you.
Do you suspect that there might be more houses or more victims?
Not at this time. We believe that we have identified all of the victims, and we are still looking for witnesses, but quite frankly, it's not over till it's over. And we are really fresh into this, and like I said, we did not have this secure and safe enough for detectives and crime scene until maybe an hour ago. So this briefing is really soon, and we've got a lot of work to do. All right?
What's the street intersection of the home?
I'm not sure what the nearest intersection is. It's just about 3/4 of a mile, maybe a half a mile north here. And once we get everything settled down, we will move y'all closer, but not right now because it's still very busy.
And how many people were shot in both of those houses?
3 in one house, 1 in the other house. And they are one house behind the other.
Okay.
And I'm not sure of their relationship or if they're related.
Are they two different properties?
It is one property and there's at least 3 homes on the property.
And just to be clear, what time did the activity start? I know you said
About 4:30, I think 4:22 was when Lieutenant Tompkins first heard the volley of what sounded like fully automatic gunfire. Okay? Understand this. Crazy people with guns are dangerous. Good people with guns keep crazy people with guns at bay. And our deputies and police officers were the good people with guns tonight, or this morning, early this morning, during the night. Thank you very much. Take care.